Wyoming Territory, 1889. The last letter from Liang Zhao reached China in the middle of winter. By spring, Mei Lin Zhao had read it so many times that the folds had begun to tear. Her brother's handwriting was smaller than usual, squeezed onto both sides of the paper as if he had been afraid of wasting space. He wrote about Wyoming. About mountains that turn purple at sunset. About railroad camps where men from half a dozen countries worked beside one another without sharing enough language to hold a conversation. He wrote that he was saving money. Someday, he promised, he and Mei would open a little shop together. Nothing grand. A place where she could sew and he could keep the accounts. He ended with the same words he had used in nearly every letter since leaving home 3 years earlier. Don't worry about me. Then Liang stopped writing. 1 month passed. Then 2. Then 6. Mei sent letters to every address he had ever given her. None were answered. By the following year, relatives began telling her what they believed she already knew. Liang was probably dead. America was enormous. Men disappeared there. There was nothing a young woman could do from across an ocean. Mei listened politely. Then she sold nearly everything she owned. By the time she stepped from the train at Silver Creek, Wyoming, Mei was 23 years old and had traveled farther than anyone in her family. She carried one leather suitcase, Liang's letters, and a photograph taken shortly before he left China. The station was smaller than she had imagined. A wooden platform. A freight shed. A water tower. Beyond them, a frontier town stretched along a muddy road beneath an enormous blue sky. Mei waited until the other passengers had left. Then she approached the station master. I am looking for my brother. The man glanced up. Name? Liang Zhao. He frowned. How do you spell that? Mei told him. He searched an old ledger. Nothing. She showed him the photograph. The station master shook his head. Sorry. At the hotel, she received the same answer. At the general store, another. At the livery stable, the owner barely looked at the photograph before handing it back. Mei had just stepped into the street when a voice behind her said, Zhao. She turned. A cowboy stood beside a bay horse. He was perhaps 34, tall and lean, with broad shoulders, sun-darkened skin, brown hair, and a short beard. His hat had lost its original shape years ago. Dust coated his boots. What did you say? That name. He pointed toward the photograph. Zhao. Mei walked toward him. You know my brother? No. Hope vanished almost as quickly as it had appeared. The cowboy seemed to notice. But I've seen the name. Mei stopped. Where? He frowned. I'm trying to remember. Try harder. The cowboy blinked. For the first time that day, someone almost smiled at her. My name's Tom Walker. I did not ask your name. No, ma'am. Where did you see Liang's? Tom looked toward the mountains north of town. Somewhere along the old railroad camps, I think. Take me there. That erased his smile. It's not one place. There are abandoned camps all through those hills. I will pay you. I wasn't asking for money. Good. Then it will be inexpensive. Tom stared at her. Mei stared back. Eventually, he sighed. Tomorrow morning. They left shortly after sunrise. Tom rode his bay gelding while Mei followed on a gentle mare rented from the livery. He didn't ask why a Chinese woman had crossed an ocean alone. Mei appreciated that. After nearly an hour, he finally said, How long has your brother been missing? 2 years. Tom turned in the saddle. 2. His letters stopped 2 years ago. And you came now? I spent a year trying to find him from China. And then? It became clear America was not planning to answer me. Tom faced forward again. So you came to ask it yourself? Yes. That time she heard unmistakable approval in his voice. Fair enough. The first camp had been abandoned for more than a year. Weeds grew between railroad ties. Rust covered broken tools. Wind pushed through buildings with missing doors. Mei searched everything. Tom initially stayed outside. Then he began helping. Inside an old dining shack, Mei ran her fingers beneath a table and froze. A small mark had been carved into the wood. 2 intersecting lines beside a rough letter L. Tom leaned closer. That means something. My brother marked his belongings that way. It wasn't much. But after 2 years of silence, it felt like hearing Liang's voice. He had been here. They found an elderly former railroad worker living several miles away. His name was Patrick Doyle. When Mei showed him the photograph, recognition came slowly. Liang. Mei nearly stopped breathing. You knew him? Quiet fellow. Good with figures. Better with supplies than the fools they hired to manage them. What happened to him? Patrick's face changed. Black pine. What is black pine? A pass north of here. Tom shifted beside her. Patrick continued. There was trouble one winter. Rockslide, maybe. Camp closed afterward. And Liang thought he'd gone south. He would have written. Patrick looked at Mei. I'm sorry. That's all I remember. It wasn't enough. But it gave her another direction. Black Pine Pass. They reached it 2 days later. The mountains rose dark above them, covered with pine and patches of old snow. The remains of another camp sat near the base of a ridge. Mei searched the cabins. Nothing. The supply shed. Nothing. Tom disappeared behind the old bunkhouse. Minutes passed. Then more. Mei stepped outside. Tom. No answer. She walked around the building. He was standing on a small rise. His hat was in his hand. Beyond him stood perhaps 15 wooden markers. A cemetery. Mei stopped. Tom turned. His expression told her before his words did. You should come here. Her legs felt strangely heavy. She walked toward him. One marker stood slightly apart from the others. Weather had darkened the wood. The carving was crude. But the name remained visible. Liang Zhao. For 2 years, Mei had imagined finding her brother in 100 different places. Working in a railroad camp. Running a store. Injured. Poor. Angry. Perhaps married. She had imagined yelling at him for not writing. Then hugging him. She had even imagined discovering that he had chosen not to return. She had prepared herself to forgive him for that. She had never prepared herself for a piece of wood. Mei knelt. Her fingers touched the marker. Tom remained several steps behind. He said nothing. She was grateful. After a long time, Mei asked, who buried him? I don't know. How did he die? I don't know. When? Tom looked at the date. Mei followed his gaze. Then something changed. She pulled Liang's final letter from inside her coat. Her hands shook as she unfolded it. What? Mei compared the date on the grave with the postmark. That's impossible. Tom crouched beside her. Why? This says he died on February 3rd. Yes. She held up the envelope. My brother mailed this on February 6th. Tom looked from the paper to the grave. 3 days after Liang Zhao was supposedly dead. Back in Silver Creek, they searched county records. The official report was barely a paragraph. Liang Zhao. Railroad laborer. Death resulting from a mountain accident. No detailed account. No witnesses listed. Mei stared at it. They didn't even write what happened. Tom leaned against the sheriff's desk. Records out here aren't always much. This isn't a record. She pushed the paper away. It is an excuse. Tom didn't disagree. They returned to Black Pine. This time they searched beneath floorboards, behind cabinets, inside broken storage crates. Near sunset, Mei noticed scratches beside a loose plank in the old supply building. Tom pried it up. Underneath sat a rusted metal box. Inside were inventory sheets, maps, receipts, and pages covered in Liang's handwriting. Mei sat on the floor. For several minutes, she forgot Tom was there. She recognized the careful numbers. The small corrections. Her brother had always written figures neatly. Even as a boy, Liang had counted everything. Rice sacks. Coins. Steps between their house and the market. Tom examined one map. What's this? A trail had been drawn around Black Pine Pass. Mei found notes beside it. Maintenance route. Then she found something else. Supply records. Flour. Blankets. Lamp oil. Medicine. The amounts delivered to the camp did not match the quantities Liang recorded as received. Someone had been stealing. Patrick Doyle remembered more when they showed him the papers. Mercer. Who? Mei asked. Silas Mercer. Had the supply contract. Tom knew the name. Mercer now owned warehouses near Silver Creek. And supplied several mining operations. Patrick looked at Liang's handwriting. He found something wrong with the accounts. What happened afterward? The old man rubbed his face. That winter was bad. Worst I remember. A landslide closed Black Pine Pass. 11 workers became stranded at a survey camp beyond the ridge. Company supervisors wanted to wait until the weather cleared. Liang refused. He knew about an old maintenance route around the mountain. He went with a rescue party. They reached the trapped men. All 11 came down alive. Liang did not. Why? Mei whispered. Patrick looked at her. On the way back, part of the trail collapsed. He stayed behind to help 2 men across. Mei lowered her eyes. Did he fall? No. Then how? Exposure, they said. By the time the last group reached shelter, he'd been outside too long. The room became silent. Tom asked, why wasn't any of that in the report? Patrick's expression hardened. Mercer handled the paperwork. Now it made sense. Liang had discovered that Mercer was stealing supplies. Then Liang died. Mercer hadn't killed him. He hadn't caused the storm. But after Liang's death, Mercer had found an opportunity. He changed dates. Removed reports. Reduced a rescue to an ordinary accident. A dead immigrant worker was unlikely to complain. And his family was an ocean away. Mercer had been right. Until Mei arrived. Silas Mercer visited her the following afternoon. He was a large man with carefully trimmed gray hair and a coat expensive enough to announce his success before he spoke. He entered Eleanor Bennett's boarding house while Mei was studying Liang's papers. I understand you've been asking questions about me. Mei didn't stand. I have been asking questions about my brother. Same thing, apparently. Mercer placed an envelope on the table. It was thick. What's that? Something to make your trip worthwhile. Mei didn't touch it. Money? Compensation. For what? Your brother's unfortunate death. 3 years late. Mercer's smile tightened. Your brother is gone, Miss Zhao. Money can still help the living. Mei looked at the envelope. Then at him. That is exactly why I won't take yours. Mercer. stared at her. Tom appeared in the doorway. Mercer glanced toward him. You becoming her bodyguard, Walker? Tom shook his head. She hasn't needed one yet. Mercer left without the envelope. Mei noticed Tom's choice of words. He hadn't said she needed him. She liked that. Perhaps more than she should have. They planned to take Liang's records to the sheriff the next morning. Before they could, Tom received news from a rider coming down from the mountains. A survey crew was still working near Black Pine. A storm was approaching. Mei immediately opened Liang's map. His notes included observations about the eastern slope. Heavy rain. Unstable rock. Drainage channels. Tom understood first. Another slide. Mei stood. We have to warn them. The sheriff needs these papers. The papers can wait. Storm won't. Exactly. Tom looked outside. Dark clouds were already gathering. We might not beat it. Mei folded the map. Then stopped talking. Rain found them halfway up the mountain. By the time they reached Black Pine, it had turned to sleet. They found the survey crew sheltering beside a cabin. 6 men. A cook. 2 drivers. Tom shouted for everyone to leave. The foreman resisted. They had equipment. Instruments. A supply wagon. Mei handed him Liang's map. This slope may collapse. The man looked at her, then Tom. Tom said, I'd listen. Thunder rolled through the pass. That settled the argument. They loaded what they could. Then the first section of trail gave way. A supply wagon became stuck near the creek bed. One wheel sank into mud. Men pushed. Horses strained. It barely moved. Tom looked toward the slope. We leave it. The foreman hesitated. Mei didn't. Cut the cargo loose. They began unloading. Then another rider appeared through the sleet. Silas Mercer. Several crates on the wagon belonged to him. What the hell are you doing? Getting people down, Tom said. Those supplies cost more than your ranch. A crack echoed from the mountain. Everyone looked up. Mercer ignored it. Nobody throws my property into a ravine. Mei stepped toward the wagon. Move. Mercer stared at her. What? She pulled a knife from the toolbox. Move. Before anyone could stop. Mei cut the rope securing the heaviest crate. It slid from the wagon. Mercer lunged. No. The crate tumbled over the edge and disappeared. The wagon shifted. Lighter. The horses pulled again. This time the wheel came free. Tom looked at Mei. She returned the knife. People first. The words came naturally. Only afterward did she realize they were exactly what Liang had believed. They moved toward the maintenance trail. Liang's trail. It was narrow but sheltered from the unstable eastern slope. The group crossed one by one. Near the final bend, Mercer went back. He had left a metal document case near the abandoned wagon. Tom cursed. Mercer. The man ignored him. He grabbed the case. Then the ground beneath his boot collapsed. Mercer fell. A rope around his waist caught on a broken post, leaving him hanging against the slope. Tom ran forward. Mei grabbed the other end of the rope. Help me. Together they pulled. Mercer clawed at the mud. For several terrifying seconds, nothing moved. Then another surveyor joined them. Mercer's hand reached the ledge. Tom seized his wrist. Mei leaned backward with all her weight. They dragged him onto solid ground. Mercer lay there gasping. He looked at Mei. You should have let me fall. Rain ran down her face. That would make me like you. Mercer said nothing. Mei turned away. Move. They reached safer ground less than 10 minutes before the eastern face of Black Pine came down. The sound was enormous. Rock. Mud. Trees. The route they had abandoned disappeared beneath the slide. Everyone survived. Not one person had been left behind. 3 years earlier, Liang Zhao had walked the same forgotten maintenance trail to bring strangers down from the mountain. Now his map had done it again. The investigation that followed lasted weeks. Mercer's surviving records matched Liang's. Money intended for food, blankets, and medicine had repeatedly disappeared. Statements from former workers confirmed the theft. The sheriff arrested Mercer on charges of fraud and theft. But Mei cared less about watching him enter a jail cell than she expected. She had not crossed an ocean for Mercer. She had come for Liang. And at last, she knew what happened to him. Several weeks later, Mei returned to the cemetery. Autumn had begun coloring the mountains. A new marker stood where the old one had been. She didn't come alone. Tom rode with her, but he stopped near the horses. Others continued to the grave. Patrick Doyle. 2 former railroad workers. A rancher named Samuel Beckett. A gray-haired man Mei had never met. He carried an old lantern. "This belonged to your brother," he said. Mei looked at him. "You knew Liang?" The man's eyes filled. "I was one of the 11. He placed the lantern beside the grave. "When the company told us nobody was coming, your brother came anyway." Mei touched the metal handle. "He never told me. Maybe he didn't think it was something worth telling." That sounded exactly like Liang. The man looked at the grave. "Your brother got us home." Something inside Mei finally broke. She had not cried when she first saw Liang's name. Not when she learned how he died. Not when Mercer offered money. Now the tears came. Quietly. She knelt beside the grave and pressed one hand against the earth. For years, she had imagined Liang dying alone in a country that had forgotten him. He had died surrounded by men who were alive because he had refused to abandon them. The grief remained. But shame and uncertainty disappeared. Her brother had not vanished. He had left footprints everywhere. Mei simply hadn't known where to look. Tom waited until she stood. He offered no speech. Only his handkerchief. She accepted it. "Thank you." "For the handkerchief?" "For helping me find him." Tom looked toward the grave. "You found him. You knew where to look. Sometimes that's all a person needs." Mei studied him. "Someone willing to point toward the right road?" "Something like that." For the first time, she allowed herself to wonder what another road with Tom Walker might look like. Then she stopped. There was still one decision she had to make alone. A week later, Tom found her at Silver Creek Station. Her suitcase sat beside her. A ticket rested in her hand. He approached slowly. "California?" "Yes." "You going home?" Mei looked down the tracks. For months, she had imagined home as a fixed place. Across an ocean. Then California. Then wherever Liang might be. Now she wasn't sure. "I don't know where that is yet." Tom nodded. No argument. No declaration. No request for her to stay. "Then don't decide because anyone else wants you somewhere." Mei turned toward him. That sentence made the choice harder. And easier. The train arrived. Steam covered the platform. Passengers stepped down. Among them was a Chinese couple carrying 2 bags and looking around with the same uncertainty Mei remembered from her own arrival. A railroad agent spoke rapidly to them. They didn't understand. The woman looked frightened. Mei watched. Then looked at her ticket. Tom said nothing. Mei walked toward the couple. She spoke to them in Chinese. Their faces changed immediately. Relief. The husband showed her an address. Mei explained where they needed to go. She helped them find a wagon. By the time she returned, the train whistle was sounding. The conductor called for boarding. Tom looked at her. Mei looked at the ticket. Then tore it once down the middle. Tom's eyebrows rose. Changed your mind? No. He waited. Mei smiled. I made it. She rented a narrow storefront near the general store. At first, Mei earned money sewing. Then people began coming for other reasons. Chinese railroad workers needed letters written. Immigrants needed contracts explained. Families needed help locating relatives. Some simply needed someone who would listen long enough to understand what they were asking. Mei did. Above her sewing table, she kept Liang's old lantern. Tom never became a permanent fixture in the shop. He knew better. He came for coffee. He brought customers who needed her help. Sometimes he repaired something that was broken. Sometimes Mei made him pay. He complained every time. She charged him extra for complaining. Their courtship unfolded so gradually that neither could name the day it began. Perhaps it was the afternoon Tom taught her to rope a fence post and she accidentally caught his hat. Perhaps it was the winter evening Mei made noodles and laughed when he tried to use chopsticks. Perhaps it began much earlier, on a forgotten railroad camp when he had followed her from cabin to cabin without once telling her she should stop searching. Whatever the moment, love arrived without demanding that either of them become smaller. 1 year after Mei first stepped from the train, another immigrant family arrived in Silver Creek. Mei met them at the station. She was 24 now. Confident. Known. Needed. She directed their luggage to the right wagon, explained where they could stay, and promised to help them find work the next morning. Across the street, Tom tied his horse outside the livery. He watched her. He didn't interrupt. Mei caught his eye. He tipped his hat. She smiled. That afternoon, they rode to Black Pine Pass. Wildflowers covered the hillside where snow had once buried the trail. Liang's grave stood beneath a pine. Mei placed fresh flowers beside the marker. Tom remained several steps away. As always, he understood that some spaces belonged only to her. Mei stood quietly. I thought I came here to find him. Tom looked toward the grave. Didn't you? Mei nodded. I found what he left behind. The lantern. The map. The men he'd saved. The road he'd shown them. The belief that no amount of money or property mattered more than bringing another human being safely home. Mei looked back toward Silver Creek far below. Smoke rose gently from chimneys. A train crossed the distant prairie. Somewhere in town, people would be waiting for her tomorrow. Letters. Contracts. Questions. New arrivals. People who had crossed oceans with no idea what awaited them at the end. Mei understood now why she had stayed. Not because Liang was buried here. Not because Tom lived here. Because she had found something worth continuing. She turned toward the cowboy. And I found what I want to leave behind someday. Tom understood. His expression softened. He didn't move toward her. So Mei crossed the distance herself. She took his hand. Tom looked down at their joined fingers. You sure? Mei smiled. You ask too many questions. I've learned that safer with you. It is. He laughed. They stood together beneath the Wyoming sky. A year earlier, Mei Lin Zhao had arrived in America carrying one question. Where was her brother? A cowboy had helped her find the cruelest answer imaginable. Liang's name carved into a grave. For a moment, Mei had believed her journey ended there. Instead, that grave became the beginning. Liang had died bringing 11 strangers down from a mountain. Years later, the trail he mapped helped his sister save another group from the same pass. The work he never lived to finish became the foundation of hers. Mei had crossed an ocean hoping to bring her brother home. She couldn't. So she carried forward the part of him that no grave could hold. His courage. His compassion. His refusal to leave people behind. And when she eventually chose to build a life beside Tom Walker, it wasn't because the cowboy had rescued a lonely immigrant woman. He hadn't. He had simply walked beside her while she searched. He gave her truth when comfort would have been easier. Distance when grief belonged to her alone. And freedom when asking her to stay might have served his own heart. Mei chose him only after she had already chosen herself. Below them, Silver Creek waited. Mei squeezed Tom's hand once, then released it long enough to pick up Liang's lantern. Together, they started down the mountain. She had come to America looking for someone she had lost. What she found was not the ending she had prayed for. It was a legacy. A purpose. A home she had chosen rather than inherited. And a man willing to walk beside her without ever deciding the road for her. Behind them, Liang Zhao rested beneath the Wyoming pines. Ahead lay the town where his sister would spend years helping strangers find their own way forward. Mei did not look back because she was leaving him behind. She looked forward because, at last, she understood that she was carrying him with her.